So the first thing that I want to do is I want to congratulate you, because if you are even interested in clicking on this video, you are already on this path of spiritual awakening, because you simply wouldn't have even been intrigued by this idea unless you are already at some level curious in it. So first off, I want you to know that if you're even interested in knowing how to be spiritually awakened, you've already taken in the first step by simply clicking on this video. Now from this place, what I want to do is I want to convey this idea to you. I want you to understand the benefits of having a spiritual awakening. I want you to know that it's something that is easier to do than you might think, that you're already on the process if you're watching this video, and that from that place you can understand how you can embody this larger aspect of who you are. Now, first off, I want to say that I am a completely different person today than I was 5 years ago before I had the idea of my spiritual awakening. I believe that having a spiritual awakening is one of our purposes in life, to wake up to who we really are. I also believe that right now on the planet, there are more and more people becoming aware of who they are and having spiritual awakenings than ever before. And that's simply because it's happening at a greater level, and we're going to see more and more people go through this process. Now, I went through this process about 5 years ago, and when I went through it, it completely changed my perspective about who I am, and it completely changed my perspective about how I live as well. I started to feel better a majority of the time. My set point went from about here to about here, and even though I would still go through waves of how I feel, I went from all the way down here to feeling at a set point of right about here. I feel really good a majority of the time. Of course, I would still go through waves, but the idea is that the lowest point that I would feel now would be almost one of the highest points that I would have felt years ago, and that simply is because I see things from a new point of view, and I understand that my natural point of view is to feel this connection, this alignment, this feeling of awareness. What I'm going to do in this video is show you how I went through this level of spiritual awakening, and to show you how you can apply some practical tips towards giving you this ability to really embody it and go through a similar process. Now, the first thing that I want to say is that I was a completely different person than I was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was somebody, and I still have a lot of energy. I'm sure that if you're watching this video right now, you can tell that I have a lot of energy, but 5 years ago, my energy was all over the place. It wasn't grounded at all. I had or labeled myself, I identified with having what is called ADHD, and I would take Adderall, which is the prescription drug that they give for it, and I would take that because it would kind of balance me out in a way. It would allow me to focus, it would allow me to kind of calm down a little bit, and it was something that had harsh side effects. The side effects of Adderall are you don't eat very much and you don't sleep very much. After years of doing this, I decided that I wanted to find a natural cure for it. I decided that I was going to at least do some research online to see if there was something else that could maybe not have side effects but give me a similar effect. So I started doing my own research, and I came across this idea of meditation. Now I started to learn more about it and see the research on it that showed the differences of how people meditated were before and after, the effects on their brain activity, the effects on the hormones in their body, and it became obvious to me that it was something that I wanted to try. So what I simply did was I sat down, I stared at a candle flame, and the reason a candle flame was because it kept my eyes on one spot and my eyes didn't wander as much. I noticed that anytime my eyes would wander, my mind would also wander. So what I did was I focused on that flame. I simply observed my breath and observed my thoughts. I did that for a couple minutes a day until I built it up over a couple days and got to a point to where I could do it for about 5 or 10 minutes. And from that point on, something began to shift inside of me. I began to observe my thoughts, and I began to be aware of the fact that there was a correlation between the thoughts that I was having, the emotions, the beliefs that I had, to the kind of experience that I was having in life. I really became aware that my external reality was a reflection of how I felt on the inside. So the external was a reflection of the inner. I became aware of this, and I ultimately became very empowered because I started to understand that there were certain ideas that I could let go of. Like one of them was the idea of ADHD. I simply thought that I had ADHD, and because of that, I identified with needing Adderall because it was a prescription drug, and I believed in the idea of prescription drugs. But what I realized is that I could simply let that go and simply identify myself now as somebody who meditates, somebody who's able to do it naturally because there's no side effects of meditation. I mean, except for maybe positive things like feeling good or having an elevated state of emotions and the many benefits that come with it. I remember that within within weeks of meditating, I completely got rid of Adderall, but I remember walking around and I remember simply touching things because my senses felt enhanced. I literally felt like things were more refined. I felt like things were sharper. And then I remember seeing things and things looked brighter. And I remember thinking to myself, why does everything feel so new? Well, what I realized was happening was that I was waking up to this grander aspect of who I was. I was starting to see things clearly for the first time. You could think of it like this. When we grow up through social conditioning, through the way that we're brought up to believe in who we think we are, there's like this cloudy film of perception that's around us, and we're trying to see through it. We can't see very far. We can't really see peripherally. And the idea is that when we begin to have this level of spiritual awakening, we remove those filters, we remove that cloudiness, and we start to see things clearly for the first time. And that because of that, we're then shifting our perception of who we are, and we're ultimately starting to feel better about who we are. So as I began to go through this level of awareness, and as I began to understand first off that I could go within and I could observe my thoughts, and from that place I started to feel so much better. From that place I was able to understand how my thoughts, my beliefs, and my emotions were creating the kind of experiences that I was having. Then I came to this awareness of having the intention of knowing more about myself. And from that point, what I then decided I was going to do was I was going to set an intention. I wanted to find out more about who I am. And I simply would ask, and I came up to this conclusion and found out that I am an immortal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. I realized that energy is created, everything is consciousness, everything is a reflection of the one. We are all connected. When I began to have this realization, it started to change the way that I felt. It started to change the set point that I had to where I started to feel good majority of the time, and I ultimately began to understand that there really is no death in the same way that we priorly thought that it was. So before I would kind of fear the idea of death, but now I understood that because I'm an immortal spiritual being, just like you are, I began to understand that there really is nothing to be afraid of. Everything is an experience, and that we are connected to a higher version of ourselves. That while we are physically focused and we are seeing things through our five senses, there's a larger aspect of us that we are connected to, and we can connect to that consciously through the idea of meditation or through the idea of being aligned with it, and that from that place we're going to actually begin to be who we really are. So what I want to encourage you to do is to understand that if you're even watching this video, you are already on the path of spiritual awakening. That from this point, what you can set the intention to do is to simply observe your thoughts more. And as you start to have that observation, that intention, you then begin to see that there's a correlation between the kind of experience that you have to the outer reflection, to the inner reality of how you innerly think about yourself, the kind of dialogue that you have about yourself, and that ultimately you can change your outer reflection by first changing your inner state of being. As you begin to ask this question and you begin to have the intention of finding out more about who you are, you may begin to understand that you are an immortal spiritual being having a temporary human experience, and that from that place you then can begin to really live your life because you understand that it's an extension of some grander aspect of who you are. You'll begin to feel into that. You'll notice that your natural set point begins to rise. You can then develop habits that serve the natural high state being that you are. You can maybe begin to eat a better diet. Understand that the more plant-based foods that you eat, the better that you feel. You can understand that you can begin to meditate. You can do natural things that get you to a high vibrational state of being. You can understand that this is your natural state of being, and that anything less than it is holding on to some ideology that doesn't serve you anymore. I believe that you are already on this path of spiritual awakening. I want to congratulate you and let you know that it's going to continue to get better and better. Simply set the intention that you're going to observe your thoughts. You're going to become more aware of the synchronicity that is already in your life. The only thing that synchronicity is you becoming aware of the fact that there's a connection between the events that happen, towards understanding the correlation between the thoughts that you have, the beliefs that you have, and the kind of experiences that you're having, and ultimately understanding that you are an immortal spiritual being having a temporary human experiences. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, share it if you found it of value and you want other people to know more about their spiritual awakening, and I hope you guys have a great day. Peace. Much love. Bye.